Okay, I've taken the dough out of the bowl and I just put a little bit of this extra flour on the counter, and I'm just going to knead in a little bit more because mine seems a little bit sticky. So this should feel firm, but it shouldn't be falling apart. So if you get too much flour worked in, the dough won't hold together and it will actually start kind of falling apart. So a little bit of guessing game, I guess, to know how much flour to add. But when you think you've got enough, I'm going to get you to take a knife, and I'm just going to divide my piece of dough into 4, and each quarter I'm going to wrap up in saran wrap, and we're going to refrigerate this for about 6 hours or overnight. It's going to make it a lot easier to roll and cut. So come back to you tomorrow. So refrigerate overnight. Okay, I'm gonna try rolling out my dough. I have not given it the 6 hours to chill, so we'll see how this works out. I've taken a quarter of my dough and put it on a piece of parchment paper, and I'm going to grab another piece of parchment paper to put over top. So I'm kind of sandwiching the dough between 2 pieces of parchment paper, and I've got my rolling pin. I'm actually also putting the parchment paper over the edge of the counter so I can kind of grip it or hold on to it so it's not sliding around when I roll. And I want to roll the dough fairly thin, so because I'm trying to hold on to it, I might have to keep rotating the dough around so I can kind of roll it bigger in all directions. Oops. Now, it depends on how big of a gingerbread house you want to make, how thin or big you want your piece of dough to roll to. I'm going to make a fairly small gingerbread house. So I don't need my pieces that big. So my aim is about 1/4 of an inch thickness of the dough. So I'm just going to check and see. Yeah, I think I'm plenty thin enough. I'm going to go a little bit too thin here. I peel the top layer off. I cut out my pieces for my gingerbread house. So this is, I don't know if you can see, but this is kind of what I want my gingerbread house to look like when it's done. And I've included this copy for you. But there is a front, back, and sides. And then there is also the roof included in the pattern. So I'm going to see what I can get on here. Hoping I can maybe get 2 sides. Yeah, and that's maybe all I'm going to get. So out of this piece of dough, I'm now going to cut the sides of my gingerbread house. I'm going to grab a sharp knife, like a paring knife, and I'm just going to cut around the pattern for my walls. So I'm using the pattern right on top of the dough, and I'm cutting around that. I am going to cut the excess dough away from the piece that I want to keep. I can re-roll my scraps. So I'll just sort of peel them off of the parchment paper. And this is the pattern I'm going to use. It's a bit sticky here, unfortunately. I think if I had greased this paper a little bit, I would have prevented that from happening. I want nice crisp sides. I want to make sure keep my two sides cut out. I'm now going to transfer these onto a baking pan. I have more parchment paper here than I need, so I'm just going to cut away the excess. And then this little piece of parchment paper with my two sides on it are going to go on to a cookie sheet. I'm just going to keep following this same procedure until I get my whole pan or my whole gingerbread house cut out. Okay, I've got my pieces all cut out and they're on cookie sheets, and I'm just going to pop these in the oven. Okay, when the cookies come out of the oven, I just suggest you take a knife, and if the edges have rounded a little bit during the baking process, while the cookie is still warm, just trim it so we've got some nice, straight, crisp edges to our pieces. It'll make things fit together much better.